just talking to people. You know what I'm saying? It's conversations, and I'm good at that. I have a natural gift from God to be able to communicate with people and relate to people. And I learned so much from talking to people. The best thing that I ever learned in life is if you listen more than you speak, you'll always be able to understand somebody. And one thing that I learned is that we are much more alike than we are different. Just make that more complicated. Sitting on the steps, feeling no feeling. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Live Your Purpose podcast. I'm your host, John Morgan Jr. We are here for another special quarantine episode of the Live Your Purpose podcast. First and foremost, man, I want to send a special shout out to everybody who has been supporting the podcast. Episodes 2 through 10 are available on the YouTube page. Episodes 1 through 10 are available on all your audio streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor. Please go subscribe to the YouTube page, like all the videos, leave me your comments, tell me your feedback, what you like, what you do not like. I said this before, I am immune to criticism, so you are not gonna hurt my feelings. Just tell me what you think. I'm just interested to hear people's feedback. But I definitely want to spend a special shout out to everybody who has been supporting. We also want to spend a special shout out to all of our essential employees during this time. Everybody who's being affected by coronavirus. All the vulnerable individuals, anybody who has lost individuals and people to their family during this time. Our prayers and our condolences go out to those individuals during this time. We know this is a high anxiety-ridden time, so a lot of our prayers and condolences go out to those individuals. I also want to send a prayer to Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and Sean Reed, the individuals who had senselessly lost their lives over these last few weeks. Our prayers and condolences go out to not just those individuals, but those people's families and friends, people who've been affected through those tragic deaths. So without further ado, man, we're gonna get into who our guest is for today. I'm super interested, and excited about this episode, man. I've known this guy for years, and it's just been so dope to kind of just see his evolution just happen right before our eyes. Like like you talking about going back to like the sandbox and going back to childhood. I remember childhood with this dude, so I'm very excited, to see him on. So without further ado, we're gonna get into the introduction. We have Mr. Mylan Murphy. He is a husband, a father. He is a serial entrepreneur, a motivational speaker, author. And if you have been following him on social media over these last few months, he is the TikTok master, man. Mylan, what's up with you, bro? How you feeling?
What's going on, bro? I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm well, man. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
No, thanks for having me, man. I'm honored. I appreciate it.
Yeah. How you doing? How are you and the family adjusting to everything within the quarantine and the pandemic, man? Y'all staying safe? Y'all staying social distance and everything?
No, yeah, we definitely are. Honestly, for me, the social distancing, the quarantine, it really hasn't been that hard. I've always been a homebody. I'm always in the house. I'm never really out. So it's hard to even catch me out before all of this. So for me, I've adjusted pretty well, working from home, doing different things at home, the skits, etc. I've been all right. And my wife, she happens to be pregnant. So she's been all right because she's super pregnant. She doesn't want to go anywhere.
Yeah, she can chill.
Honestly, we've luckily been blessed enough to have this situation, this storm, go past us and not even really feel it much. So we've been good, just trying to, like you said, stay safe leading up to the pregnancy, the birth. But other than that, we've been doing all right. What about you?
Yeah. Well, first off, congratulations, man. So we've been doing well. And I was actually talking to some friends the other day. My wife and I were talking to some friends, and we were just talking about like having a baby during this time has kind of been, we're going to look back at this time 10 years from now and say, man, this is like the best thing that ever happened to us.
Right.
We're never, to be able to have this amount of like time home, with a newborn, a new baby.
Yeah.
You can't replicate things like that, man. You know what I'm saying? You can't, we're never going to get this amount of time ever. Like any other time, I would have been at work 7-8 hours. Like I would have been missing so much time, and my wife and I, any issues that we had, we're able to like put those things on Front Street and attack them and adjust them right then on the spot. So it's really just making us work through any type of issue that we have, allowing us to really spend that quality time with our son. So it's been a blessing in disguise, man. Outside of, people unfortunately passing and, being sick,
Right.
for us, as a family, it has been wonderful. Really, it really has. So,
Absolutely.
really just trying to change our perspective and look at it from a positive way.
Exactly.
Um, so man, let's jump into it, man. Let's jump into your story a little bit, man. Again, man, I'm excited to to have you on, man. Again, we've known each other for years, but there's still so much about your story that I do not know.
Yeah.
And part of my process in doing these, man, I do talk to people who are close to the individual. So, I was able to do a little bit of research, man, what I'm saying, to learn some stuff about you,
Gotcha.
man. So,
Gotcha.
you know
Okay.
what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
I'll tell you who I talk to when we get done, man, so without further ado, man, let's start at the very beginning, man.
Okay.
What was childhood like for Mylan, man? What was it like for young Mylan, in the early '90s, man, and just growing up here in the city of Akron? What was it like
Yeah.
for you?
Honestly, I was blessed. I had, it's the standard, normal, mid-class family. My older brother and I, we were the only two children in the house. We were extremely close. We never fought, anything like that. And still to this day, closer than ever. So, the two of us, we had a great upbringing. My mom and dad, they were married. We lived in West Akron. No complaints. I tell a lot of people, my life really started when I was 13. So, from the time I can remember up until 13, I had a normal life. And, in my opinion, nothing over the top, but I was spoiled in that sense of my parents, they had set us up to be, young men, and we were able to receive the different things that they would give us. So I was blessed. 13, my parents got divorced, and that's when I would say things really shifted. So that wasn't even, obviously the 90s, but that's when things shifted for me, and when I really truly became who I feel I am today.
Mm-hmm.
So that sort of skips over your question with, the young
No,
Mylan.
no, you good. You
Obviously,
good.
the young Mylan. We've known each other since kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
But, I would say, leading up all those years, young Mylan was, the average kid, played basketball, football, baseball, soccer, you play a little bit of everything, and you have that normal life. But then once adversity hit, that's when I think I truly became who I am today.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Listen, man, when I have people on here, I always ask them, who were their earliest influences of entrepreneurs, and I know in your situation is kind of like, your situation is different. Both of your parents really had the entrepreneur bug in them, and and you've seen that early. Can you just kind of talk about, like, seeing that and growing up, with both of your parents being entrepreneurs and having, a different, just a different set of eyes, as opposed to having, kids, when their parents have what people would consider to be traditional 9 to 5 jobs. What was it like for you and your brother just seeing that, having parents as being entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I mean, just like anything else, it has its pros and its cons. But on the pro side of it, you see your parents going through, pushing through their business, something that they truly believe in, that they're passionate about. They're not punching in the clock, dreading going in every single day. The one thing that you do see is their determination and how much they truly love what they're doing. So that for me was a huge motivator, because growing up, I realized I didn't have to be pigeonholed into something I don't want to do. I see too many people now and back then that, their parents don't like their jobs. They're always gone, whatever it is. And, maybe they're making good money, but at the same time, what's your quality of life like if you're away from your
Right.
family, if you're making a lot of money? So I think, number one, it just allowed me to see that when you're doing something that you're passionate about, that right there is happiness in itself. But two, hard work, because again, the con to being an entrepreneur, I mean, nobody's paying you. You have to go out and get it. You know what I mean? Nothing is, for nothing's certain. You're not getting that residual check every 2 weeks or every week, on your employer. So I saw those, the cons to that as well, where they have to go out and create and grind and make that money for themselves. And that allowed me, like I said, when adversity struck, that allowed me to sort of bring out what I had saw growing up and learn a way of survival. So you see a lot of pros and cons with it, but I think it's one of those things that everybody has it in them. It's just, like you said, whether it's upbringing or an event that occurred in your life, it's what is that event that's going to bring it out of you. Everybody has their own passion, their own identity, but not everyone knows how to find it. So luckily I was raised to know how to find my identity, my passion. So that's pretty much how that worked, upbringing wise.
So do you believe that everybody can be an entrepreneur?
I honestly do. I do.
Yeah.
Because there are things that I think you're just born with that you just had, as far as, being an entrepreneur. But again, going back to just talent and capability, I think that everybody is capable of something unique. I think that we're all created in our own way. And there's so many ways that you want to look at it. An entrepreneur could be, somebody that's running a company that has 500 employees. It could be somebody that's running a company that's 5 employees. It could be just you working with yourself, but you could be an artist. You can be whatever it is, even a form, and I say artist as in drawing, painting, but you could be a musical artist. All of that is still a form of entrepreneurship. So I think anybody is capable of being an entrepreneur. But again, just because they're capable, a lot of people, the majority of people, don't know how to find that within themselves. But I do firmly believe that everybody is capable of some type of entrepreneurship within them.
Yeah, I would tend to, I agree with that. Now I would consider myself to be a late bloomer in the entrepreneurship space. For me, it was sports, going to school, get a good job. If sports didn't work, go to college, get you a good job, get you benefits, make some decent living and take care of your family. That was pretty much the trajectory of what I seen life to be. And in my late to mid 20s is when, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I got the bug of real estate. And then from there, we just kind of began to snowball. Yeah. But I agree with you. I think that the biggest thing is going within and finding it in yourself, especially if it isn't something that you found out early in life. Right. And I think a lot of times people don't really take the time to really go within to figure out, okay, what am I passionate about? How can I turn that into making money? And I think a lot of times people are just fearful, man. I think a lot of times people are held back by fear and their own feelings of criticism, what people may feel, their own family beliefs. A lot of times those are the same things that hold people back. But I definitely tend to agree with the idea that everybody has some type of unique skill set, talent, some type of passion, and you can turn that into making some type of money. So I agree with that.
And, I wouldn't even, for instance, you say that you're a late bloomer, but I wouldn't even consider it that, because I think, well, one, for our age, we're still considered young, but
that's true. That's true.
You could have worked your entire life, 30, 40 years, retired, and then figured out, hey, I'm going to do something else. So I don't even think that age matters. You could be a 4-year-old entrepreneur. You could be a 90-year-old entrepreneur. It's not about when it happens. It's just the fact of it happened. If it took you 80 years to figure it out, hey, at least you figured it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
agreed.
There's nothing wrong with being a late bloomer. But in your case, man, we're so young. We have so many years.
You're right.
So
you're right.
It doesn't matter about the age, honestly.
Yeah, you're right about that. So what did your mother and father do? Your dad, he worked for it was a cleaning company, right? He had a cleaning company, right?
Yep. He had a cleaning company, and at that time, he had accounts all over the place. He had all the PetSmarts in Northeast Ohio. He had a bunch of different gyms and facilities like that. So he was doing commercial, carpet cleaning, commercial floor waxing, refinishing, things like that. So he did that. And then my mom, she had a bunch of different businesses over the years. One business was a chair cover business where she decorated venues for weddings. Then she also got into cleaning as well later in life. So yeah, they've both always had something. And, my brother, he's always been my right-hand man, even with things that I've come up with. He's been there to help me. When I came up with a clothing line, he was in college. We teamed up, had different things going there. He's had his ventures as well, and he still does to this day. So yeah, it's just always been one of those things that we just believing in ourselves, really. That's really all it comes down to.
So looking back on it, did your parents have intentional conversations with you and your brother about, hey, try to bet on yourself and, go into business for yourself? Did you guys ever have conversations like that? Or was it just kind of like what you seen and it just kind of sparked something within you?
I think it was just them leading by example and what we saw, because honestly, going back to what you said, for me, I mean, hey, it was, look, you're going to go to college. Before that, you're going to play sports, whatever sports, wherever that takes you, wherever that leads, but you're going to get that discipline from playing sports. So, you go up from Pee-wees and football all the way to, YMCA and basketball, and you're playing all these different sports. That's where that foundation of discipline and hard work and all that was laid. But then the expectation is, okay, you're going to go to high school, you're going to thrive in high school, and then from there, you're going to see. And fortunately, my brother and I both were able to receive scholarships from sports to go to college, or else, I don't know personally. My brother, he was in a different situation. Our parents were still together when he went to college. When I went, I was in a single-parent home at that point. So had it not been for sports, I don't know what would have happened. You know what I mean?
Right.
Obviously, that wasn't the case, but it was just one of those things that it was expected to play sports. And then from there, sports, we used it as a vehicle, which took us to the next step. So yeah, it wasn't really ingrained in us, hey, you need to start a business or this is what you need to do. Our parents were very loose and in a good way. They weren't strict with telling you what you're going to do, but they just showed by example. They led us by example, and we sort of followed that,
Yeah, I think that's so powerful, with kids, man, because in kids, in my experience, just working with kids and just having relationships with younger kids learn more by what they see you do as opposed to what you tell them.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that that's powerful that you said that they led by example, and just kind of laid a blueprint. Do you remember, like, do you remember just feeling different as a kid as far as, like, listen, I want to be creative, I want to do things differently, I want to have my own? Because I mean, you spoke on it earlier. When adversity came, when your parents got divorced when you were 13, that's just kind of when things just changed for you, because that's ultimately when you started your clothing line.
Right.
But like, even like before that time, like before the clothing line started, do you ever just remember having thoughts of, like, man, I want to have my own? Were those ever any thoughts, or was it because when I did my little bit of research and things on you, one thing that I heard about you is that Mylan was always independent. He was just always was able to, like, make things happen on his own.
Yeah.
So I want to know from you, do you remember, like, having those conscious feelings of that as a youngster?
Yeah, that's a great question. I definitely do remember that. Even like you said, before the clothing line, just, growing up, I knew whatever I did, I wanted to make an imprint, leave an impact on whoever and whatever I can do. I didn't know exactly, like you said, what that would be. But the one thing that I did know is that I was very creative, and I always thought outside the box. So things that were in my head, sometimes people wouldn't even get, but it's just because I had this large vision of something that even others couldn't see. So I definitely always knew that I had that, creativeness, like you said, being independent, and a vision. Whatever that vision led to, I knew that I wanted to do something great. And I still feel like I haven't gotten there yet, but I definitely feel like I'm on my way. But yeah, I've always known that I wanted to do something great, something big. I always had an itch for networking. The one thing that I feel like I've always been really, good at is networking, being able to talk to anybody, being able to place myself in any environment and strike up a conversation with someone that is 20 years younger than me, or at that time, 5 years younger than me if I was 10, or, 50 years, 60 years older than me. That's one thing that I've always been able to do, just connect, talk to people. And I knew I wanted to do something with that, whether, again, foreshadowing, it led to motivating people and different things that I'm doing now. But that's sort of, it in a nutshell. I always knew I wanted to do something great, and I always knew I had the ingredients, but,
So when your parents do get divorced, man, when you 13 and you ultimately do start Novel, what was that feeling like, man, as being a youngster? And the reason I asked that question is because, like, one thing that I also try to highlight on this podcast is, man, just the impact of mental health and mental illness and just trauma in general.
Right.
And a lot of us, man, we don't really consider the impact of, like, divorce, and that can really be traumatic, for individuals. So, like, for you, what was your experience in, like, that kind of just being something new for you, but you were ultimately able to turn it into something positive, which being your clothing line? So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it right on the head with saying, a lot of times different events that you go through can be traumatic, and you're right, it was traumatic. There was nothing easy about it. There was nothing that didn't alter every part of me. It did, but like you said, you have to change that negative into a positive, and that's the key behind anything that you go through in life, any adversity, any barrier that you go through. It's not about what's happening to you; it's about what you're doing with the event. But to go back to it, yeah, I mean, I was 13, so I'm in that 7th, 8th grade range, and it was one of those things where, okay, I knew at that point I'm going to go live with my mom, but that means we're probably going to struggle because it's 2 different households, et cetera, just like any other divorce. So I knew, okay, at that point, my brother's away at school. You're the man of the house. I mean, that's how I was looking at it. It's my mom and I'm the man in the house. I have to do what I have to do to support her in any way that I can, or at least to help. So going back to the creativeness, I just thought, I was like, I've always wanted to wear my own clothes. You grow up wearing Jordan and, different things like that. It's like, that'd be dope if I could wear my own clothes somehow, not knowing how. I'm not an artist by any means. I can't draw. I am not, I'm creative. I can envision, but I can't draw. So here I am, 13, just like, I'm going to try to start a clothing line. Again, being different, that's been my motto ever since I can remember. In my head, I'm thinking, nobody's doing this, nobody's doing that. It started with me going to the neighbor's house, shoveling snow, cutting grass, things like that. Your average duties during our childhood that people would do. So I'm thinking, like, nobody has a clothing line that I know of. Started looking into it. Started drawing up some different things. I hooked up with a local print shop, and at that time, I didn't have a dime. So how am I going to make clothes without any money? Well, I started taking pre-orders, and I would just draw something up. I was good on the computer. I would go and paint, Photoshop back then, and basically come up with an electronic mock-up like, hey, this is the design I'm thinking about. What are your thoughts? Would you buy it? People started taking a liking to it. I started getting pre-orders, and I was getting money before I even ordered the shirts. So I knew, okay, I have, 100, whatever it is, 100 orders. So take that money to the print shop, buy it, get some extras. So basically it started rolling that way. And then I developed a relationship with the print shop where they trusted me because I was pushing a lot of volume. So I was able to get orders without having money. It was just a blessing. I was able to really start something from nothing. And that pretty much snowballed. It led to me buying my first car. It led to me doing my senior class sweats and T-shirts. I mean, a bunch of different things, but it sort of started from nothing,
Man, so that's so dope to me because we talking about the early 2000s, like
way ahead.
People weren't like today. Like you see people having their own merch, their own clothing lines. Like on social media, everybody is doing their own stuff, right. Their own line, own merch, any of that. Like, but you talking about the early 2000s, like this was not a regular thing to do, especially for a 13-year-old kid, man. So like, where did the name even come from? Like, where did the name come from? And like, again, man, how did the 13-year-old kid have the balls to say, bro, I'm going to get these T-shirts and take pre-orders? Like, where did that even come from? Like, was it just you taking action? Was somebody helping you along the way? It's kind of like just giving you the game. Where did all of that kind of just come from?
So to start from what you just said, nobody was. I had no help. I had no advice, and I don't say that in any disrespectful way. It's just this was an idea that I came up with. There was nobody that I could look to that had been there and help me. You know what I mean? Other than, again, parents having that entrepreneurial background, nobody had any clue of how to tell me how to start a clothing line or what to do. So it came from being hungry. It stemmed from being hungry and not having money and wanting to truly help my mom and be able to get things that I wanted as a kid. I'm still a kid, you know what I mean? Like, but I understood, man, my mom might not be able to give me this, so I got to go grind and get it for myself. If I don't go buy myself a car, I might not be driving, or, you know what I mean? Different things like that. So it just came from that hunger. But going back to one of your first questions, the name Novel at the time, it came from, and I still to this day do this, man. I have serious brainstorm sessions like with myself. I can be in bed. I can be waking up out of the middle of a sleep. I can just be sitting there and I just go into like this deep thought. And next thing you know, I'm writing things down. And even if I revisit it a few days later, I maybe revise it, but I go on these serious brainstorm sessions, and that's where it happened with that. I remember being in my room just writing down different names, and I always think like, okay, how would this look on this? Or what would somebody think about that? Or how marketable is this? So all these different factors are going through my head. And I remember pulling up the thesaurus. This was like the first time I really like utilized the thesaurus, and I still use it now to this day. I pulled it up. I'm like, whatever I come up with, I want it to be something different, because that was my motto. Like everything I did, I just wanted to be different than other people. So I typed in different, and I was in the thesaurus, typed in different, boom, novel. I never knew novel other than like a book. I never knew novel had another meaning to it, and novel meant to be different or unusual, and it was perfect. And that was my first shirt, first design on the back. It said to be different. It said to be unusual. It's the second part of the definition, and that's where I just knew. Sometimes you brainstorm and you instantly just know when you get it, and that's where the name came from.
Man, I can remember when we were kids. I can remember when you first came out with the shirts, and for me, like I just want to just support somebody I knew doing something.
Right.
But I do remember having the feelings like, yo, this is different. Like, you know what I'm saying? Nobody else is doing this. You know, I want to support, but like, dude is on his own type of time. Like, and I just remember having respect for you stepping out there and doing your own, man. So I think that that's real dope. And like for any kids, you know, there's always ways of being creative, man. And a lot of times it just takes action. And you know, and I firmly believe that when you take action, the universe will start to give you the things that you need. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. When you put it out there, you're gonna get it back, man. You know what I'm saying? So I think that that's like super dope. You know that you did that at such an early age. Also, man, like during this time, you still playing sports, you hooping, you actually getting a name for yourself here in the area. What's so funny is at one point in time, and you can speak on this better than I can. I remember you were actually supposed to come to Copley, man. You were supposed to come to Copley at one point in time and transfer there, but it ultimately never ended up happening that way. But like, can you talk to me a little bit about like that, about those high school years, man, and just hooping during this time? Because that was a time, man, where high school sports. Again, man, I'm biased. Like I admit my biases, but high school basketball during that time was lit. You know what I'm saying? From the city sports to the suburb schools, everywhere. Yeah. The area was just a lot of talent and a lot of go hooping it here in the area, man.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. It's funny that you even say that. My son was in a basketball league this past winter, and one of the guys I was helping the league, he's like, he knew of me. He was from Akron. He's like, hey, didn't you hoop at Copley? I'm like, no. I was like, I almost went to Copley. So it's funny you say that, but yeah. So in high school, I went to Hoban, which was it was weird. I went to Hoban my freshman year. My brother had went to St. V, so it was already weird that I went to Hoban. But after the divorce, I left Hoban because we moved. So freshman year, I was at Hoban. That next year, it was up in the air. Okay, where am I going to go? My mom and I were looking at different apartments all over the place. I remember we were about to get this apartment on Miller, which was in the Copley School District. And that's what we both thought. That's where I'm going. I'm going to Copley, you know what I mean? And it fell through. We didn't get the apartment. I ended up moving in the Valley, and I fell in Woodridge School District. So it was really between St. V, Firestone, Woodridge, and Copley. But Copley was definitely the number one. And I wanted to go there because you were there. Matt Warren was there. Andrew Moss was there. Like, Joe Horton. Like, I knew all of you because you guys had a crazy squad. Like you said. The sports were ridiculous. I mean, literally, like you said, there were no number of suburban league teams that were crazy, number of city league teams that were crazy, private schools. I mean, man, we had it going in that era for sure. But yeah, so I ended up going to Woodridge. That's where I graduated from, and the rest is history from there. But yeah, Copley definitely was in the plans.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's crazy. I guess everything is in divine order, man. You know, it happens the way it's supposed to, because you ultimately were able to end up going to school and able to go to college, you know, on a scholarship. But what's interesting about your story is, man, you ended up, you know, quitting hoops, you know what I'm saying, 2 years into playing, and you ultimately quit to focus on school. Can you talk to me a little bit about, like, what was the experiences that kind of led up to you, like, wanted to just say, you know what, I've hit my ceiling, like, you know, I don't want to do it anymore. Like, I'm done. And I'm going to actually focus on school, because that's kind of like that's still going against the grain as well, which kind of matches up with your story as well,
Yeah.
being different, being unusual, So just talk to me a little bit about like, what were the experiences that kind of led up to that?
Yeah. So that part of my life is probably the darkest time in my life. A lot of people don't really know about it. So coming out of high school, I was heavily recruited. But the biggest thing that every recruiter, every D1 school was telling me, you're too skinny. You got to put on weight. You got to put on weight. So I was getting ready to go to a prep school in Pennsylvania with Tyreek Evans at the time, because that coach, I met him at 5-star camp and he really took a liking to me. I was going to go to prep school. My mom and I, we were on a trip in Disney, and I remember getting a phone call from the coach like, hey, prep school rules just sort of changed, like basically post-grad, that it sort of changed. So things weren't going to work out like we thought. So I'm like, man, like I was getting ready to go to prep because I'm already young for my grade. I graduated when I was 17. I started school early. So prep school would have been perfect for me in terms of maturity and get my body together. So prep school fell through. At that point, I had waited so long because I knew I was going. So I ended up going to Columbus State, which was a junior college. So I went JUCO, and, I got there, man, and love all the guys that, I have nothing. I'm not one to look back and regret. I'm not one to hold any grudges, anything of that nature. But I got to this JUCO. I had college coaches coming to my practices to check me out, because I was just going to go 1 year JUCO. I wasn't going to do 2. 1 year JUCO, boom, go to college. And, I got there, man, and I just felt like, guys were attacking me. I felt like in practice, there were numerous times where they tried to hurt me. One time I came home from class, my tires were slit. I look up and I see some of my teammates looking out the window. So, for me, again, a lot of people don't know this, but, for me, that was that point where I'm just like, man, like, one, where I'm at right now, this isn't where I'm supposed to be. Like, obviously the hate and the jealousy, whatever it might be, I'm not going to let that kill me. But, I remember it was a holiday weekend. I was getting ready to drive home. Like, I couldn't even drive home because my tires were slit. Like, just things like that, man. I felt real threatened, and I just was uncomfortable. Again, I'm 17 in college. Like, I hadn't even turned 18 yet. So I'm a young kid. I felt threatened and just like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. I went to school for 1 year there. I continued. I was doing a dental technician certification. So I got my dental certificate. I moved out, and I was living on my own, had to get a couple jobs. I had about 4 or 5 jobs in 2 weeks. I worked somewhere for 2 weeks, get another job. Life just was weird, man. Like, in the place that I had gotten an apartment, I was a little studio apartment in the hood of Columbus, and I have homeless people knocking on my window all the time, waking me up in the middle of the night. It was scary. It was coming from West Akron growing up, and even when, my mom and I moved, we were never in a bad area. So you're on your own now in a place where you don't know anybody. I didn't have any family, anything. People are knocking on my window. I'm just like, man, this is weird. Like, but again, turning that negative into a positive, I started realizing, like, even in my situation where I thought I was at the lowest point of my life, just quit basketball, had my car that I still bought from the clothing line, years ago. It was beat up at that point. But I'm like, you know what? There's people that are still in a worse position than me. Like, and I think that I'm at an all-time low at 17. Like, I'm doing well compared to some of these other people. So I started realizing, like, the homeless people around me and just different things. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start feeding them. I'm going to start giving shoes away. I had bins of shoes at the time, bins of clothes. I would go put it by the dumpster, and I wouldn't throw it away. I would just set it by the dumpsters. Food, I was putting it by the dumpster, and I would see these people in my clothes, way too big to be wearing, size 14, 15 shoe, 5'7" guy, but he needed it, So that shifted my whole mindset, man, and that's when I started sending out, at the time I called it the Strive For Daily Statement. It was just a text message, just motivation. I wake up every day.
Yeah, I remember those. Yeah.
So that's how that happened, because I was trying to not only pick myself up during that time, but I was trying to pick up people around me because I noticed how bad other people needed it. So when I stopped playing basketball, it also opened my eyes to so much that I was just oblivious to. And then I decided, after that, so I'm sending out the daily statement. I came up with a couple websites in between that, and I got that itch back. I'm like, man, I had just finished the certification. I'm like, all right, I got to figure this out. So I started working out and stuff again, got that itch back. I was still in contact with coaches that were recruiting me and started working out. Literally had talked to the Baylor coach who was very interested in me the year before, talked to a few other coaches, literally had visits set up. I'm getting ready to go to Baylor in a week. And at this point, I'm feeling good. I'm back to feeling, like myself. I'm back home and I'm playing at a church, playing pickup just with some guys that knew how to play, but just to get my wind up. Man, I get on a fast break. I go up for a dunk. My leg snaps, break my leg in 8 spots. And, yeah, man, I remember I hit the ground. My leg was just, like, numb. And, guys came up there like, you good? Like, wanted to help you up. I'm just like, I knew I couldn't get up. They called my mom, my brother, came, the ambulance. And I remember having to call the coach in the hospital basically saying, like, hey, like, I just broke my leg. Like, can't make the visit. And that was like one of the most crushing things I had to do, because at that point, just when I got the love for the game back, I'm like, shoot, now what am I gonna do? I just broke my leg. Like, am I even gonna play again? Am I gonna be the same? Luckily, fast forward later, which I'm not gonna, I got a phone call when I was laying in bed recovering from a coach at Northern Michigan. He said he had heard about me, heard about the things I was doing outside of sports, the clothing line, different things like that. And he believed in me and wanted to still give me a full ride, and he wanted me to come fly out, take a look at the school, and obviously from there it all happened. So it was just a crazy roller coaster, man, and I wouldn't change it for anything, but it definitely is something that a lot of people don't know about
me. Yeah. Why you think those dudes was attacking you, man? Was it because you was the young dude on campus? Was it a hazing type of thing? Why do you think that was going on?
Yeah, it was exactly that. I don't necessarily think that it was even like, I don't want to say I didn't take it personal, because I did, but like I had D1 coaches come into my practices every week, and they weren't getting that attention. I already wasn't supposed to be there. It just sort of happened because my other plans fell through. So it's like, okay, you got this D1 recruit here. And I mean, at that time I'm 17. I remember having teammates that were 23, 24. These are grown men, you know what I'm saying? So like they're thinking, man, this kid, I'm about to show him up in practice. There's a D1 recruit right there, like a D1 coach right there. So they wouldn't pass me the ball. They were trying to undercut me, different things like that. But yeah, it was just jealousy, man. And you see that in any aspect of life. You see it in the workplace. You see it no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
when you were laying in that hospital bed, man, and that coach did call you, at any point where you thinking to yourself like, man, I'm not coming. I'm done. You know what I'm saying? Like I tried to get it back. I got the love for the game back, and this happened. I'm done. Did that ever come across your mind?
Absolutely. Not because I wanted it to be like that, just because I didn't know. They were telling me, okay, we don't know if we're going to have surgery. We don't know how long it's going to take, but we do know you're going to be in a cast, at least a brace, demobilizer, at least for 6 months. And so, yeah, I'm thinking, man. But when he calls, I'm just like, you realize, like, I'm on crutches. Like, I can't walk right now. He's like, yeah, we want you to come on up. And I remember I squeezed in that plane. Every plane is small for me, but I squeezed in that plane, man. I had my crutches. And sure enough, I was on campus taking this visit on crutches. Like, it's sort of like, now looking back at it, it's like sort of crazy, because no coach, every offer that I had, every level you could think of, no coach wanted to touch me after that. But like, for him to give me a full ride, and I'm literally there on crutches, like, it's sort of crazy. But
yeah, they don't know what you gonna end up being after that, after that recovery.
Yeah. So it's just, man, it was just a blessing, that he believed in me,
Yeah. So how did that ended up turning into you ended up playing those 2 years at Northern Michigan, and you still decided not to finish there, and and not to play the 4 years? How come you didn't go on and continue those 4 years and playing at Northern Michigan?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So I got to Northern Michigan. The coach that brought me there, we had a good season. I started my freshman year, played every game, and after that season, he had some medical issues. So he ended up resigning. He had been there for 24 years. I mean, he was a long-time coach. He resigned.
Got you.
Well, once he resigned, we got a new coach. And
program totally different.
Totally different.
Yeah.
And at that moment, looking back, if I wanted to continue playing, I should have left after the first coach resigned. But I stuck it out. I was the captain at that point, and, we had just graduated a bunch of guys. I loved that team. That first team, I loved them. And I love my second team, but those guys really brought me in. They were there on my visit. Well, second coach comes in, and not that he didn't like me, not that I didn't like him. We didn't see eye to eye on different things. I would come home to train with Larry Nance and Larry Nance Jr. and different guys, open gyms with Brown and them. And I would come home. He didn't like that. He wanted me to stay up there all summer. I'm back home in Akron. In my head, Akron, we got the best hoopers around.
Right.
Our open gym sessions.
I'm getting better here than I am here.
Our open gym sessions are crazy 3 times a week. I'm going home. So we butt heads on that. Regardless, played that next season under him. Again, started every game. But another thing people don't know, I ended up 2 games before the season ended. I had knee surgery, had a knee scope. And I'm just like, man, my body is breaking down on me. I just broke my leg 2 years ago. I'm having knee surgery. So after that second season, I was faced with basically, look, didn't love how things went with the basketball program. I can either transfer. There were coaches that were calling hey, if you want to transfer, you can come to us. But at that point, it was just okay, what do I want to do with basketball? Do I want to go play overseas? Do I want to try to make it to the league? And it just wasn't there. I mean, I could easily have gone overseas, but my counselor at the time, I was super close with her. She was like, hey, you're only about a year away from finishing. If you really grind, take a ton of credits, and take summer classes, you can finish your undergrad in 3 years. So I started thinking, I'm like, I'm going to do that. So I stopped. I'm like, you know what? I'm not playing anymore. I'm going to focus on school. I finished my undergrad in 3 years, and then I went to grad school. So I got undergrad and grad school done in 5 years, which would have essentially been, 6 for most. So
that's crazy. So, because you had a scholarship at this point in time, right?
Yeah.
Were you getting any type of pushback from people saying yo, you giving up your scholarship, man? You tripping right now. You gotta ride that thing. You gotta ride that thing out, man.
Absolutely.
Was it any of that?
Oh, a lot of that. You know what I mean?
Right.
A lot of that. Everybody, family, friends, teammates, but it was one of those things where you have to make that decision for yourself, and what you want to do. And I remember, one of your best friends, so people will understand, Cam, he was in our league at that point. And I remember, I played against him 1 year, but then the next year, I remember I didn't go to any games except for the game when he came all the way up to Northern Michigan. And I didn't even have that itch for the game anymore, because I was just beyond that point. And if I would have kept going just because of other people telling me to, I wouldn't have been in it for the right reasons, man. At that point, I was just more focused on school and business. Yeah,
that's a tough thing, and that's such a real sentiment for athletes. And I think a lot of times, especially for Black boys and Black men, growing up into a society where sports is so much pressure and it's so much goes into playing sports. A lot of times, man, that is our only outlet. That's the only outlet we think that we have. I can even remember, when I quit playing football after my freshman year, I remember my uncle, my dad, my cousins, everybody talking to me bruh, you tripping. You know what I'm saying? You cutting out your opportunities on being able to go to school. I know you're going to play basketball, but keep your options open. But I was similar to you. I didn't have the love for it anymore, man. And football is one of those sports. If you don't have the love for it, you're going to get hurt. You can't play football and don't love it, period. But I can understand that sentiment, man, 100%. So talk to me a little bit, when you do decide to, put the ball down and, ultimately transition to your next stage of life, you ultimately end up becoming an intern, at Northern Michigan. And that ultimately ends it up that begins to snowball into a lot of different opportunities. What happens next, in that story that you can kind of speak on? Because the internship ultimately turns into you working in marketing and doing things with your peers and doing things with other athletes. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the director of marketing and communications at the university, she found out I wasn't playing anymore. And I remember she called me into her office, hey, let's meet. I want to meet you, talk to you. And basically I left the meeting where she was like, look, I don't know if you want this or not, but I want you to be a part of our office. I'm going to give you an internship. It wasn't even an interview. There wasn't a job position. It was literally, hey, I want to meet with you and talk to you. And she sort of took me under her wing. She said, I want to give you an internship. And sure enough, I did that. I was able to get some, a little bit of money under my belt. And obviously the experience that I was lacking, because I had been an athlete all these years. Obviously I have my clothing line that's, entrepreneurship on my resume, but I didn't have any actual work
experience.
Yeah, so that jump started a lot. I just started seeing so much with how a university works, it's different things. And then I had a professor who really saw something in me, and they basically recommended me for this program by the Olympics. It was a minority leadership program. They're like, hey, you should apply for this. Like, you'd be good for it. They only select 30 people in the country for it. I'm just like, I'm looking at like the previous, you almost getting that stigma. I'm at a smaller school. I'm looking at the previous participants, and, you have Duke, you have Harvard, you had North Carolina. I mean, Stanford. I'm looking at all these different universities. I'm just like, man, like, I don't fit that mold, but I'm going to apply because my professor sees it in me. And I did, and I was selected. I was 1 out of 30 in the country selected for that program. And I went out there and networked like crazy. I was hungry. And that networking led to me getting an internship at the United States Olympic Committee in Colorado Springs. And then I ended up working with them 2 more times after that. So I've had 4 different occasions that I've worked with the United States Olympic Committee, but that all jump started from, like you said, that initial internship, which I then did a grad assistantship in that same office, which got me through grad school. So one thing led to another, and people they saw stuff in me that I didn't see in myself, and it was a blessing.
What's the biggest thing you think you learned in that time period of, in those internships? What you take with you today?
Man, so many things. I'm trying to think of one that really stands out. Because, I mean, like I said, I could raffle off a bunch, but one thing that just during that time, really just to keep it as brief as possible, believe in yourself. Even when there's people that believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself. So it's like, if somebody can see something in me that I don't even see, I really have to check myself and know and be confident in who I am, because if I have that, then I can go anywhere. If you don't have that, it's going to be tough, because then it takes a certain person to see it in you, and that person might not always be there to point that out and make you known of it. So I think just believing in yourself, man, and being confident in, who you are. Again, I can name so many things I've learned, but that would be just the most basic message. Just, you have to believe in yourself to keep going to another level. If you don't believe in yourself,
So with the Olympic committee experience, what was that like? Again, just a few years prior, man, you a college athlete. You know what I'm saying? You trying to continue on your hoop dreams, man. You still doing your entrepreneurship thing, but I'm sure a couple years prior that was never on your radar. So like when you ultimately began that type of work, what was that feeling like? When you were actually in the process of in the moments of working with the Olympic committee, how was that?
It was amazing. It was amazing. The people that I met, the things that I learned, the athletes that I saw, it was just everything around you was so inspirational. There was just so much energy. I took everything in that I could. Like when I tell you, like, I went in there like a sponge, like I took everything in, and still to this day, I have relationships with, executives at the USOC. I have relationships with athletes that were competing. Man, that experience was amazing. Like it was mind blowing. That's when I knew, like, okay, I got to keep doing, I got to stay on this path. I'm on the way to where I want to be. It was almost like a dream job in the sense, you dream of, if you're not playing, you dream of working for those, the NBA or working for Nike, or that's what I dreamt of. If I wasn't an actual athlete, I dreamt of being in sports still. And it was like a dream job, but it also humbled you because with the Olympic movement, you have the Paralympic movement as well. So I met so many people who, don't have limbs, don't have certain abilities that we have, and that are still out here killing it in their sport. And it's just like, it's literally mind blowing. Like, wow, like he's blind and he's swimming faster than the majority of the world can swim that can see. I mean, it's just so many things, man. I mean, that Olympic movement is so powerful. I'm just so grateful to have been a part of it for so long.
And what exactly were you doing within the Olympic Committee?
Yeah, so the Olympic Committee, initially the minority program, that was more so just a week-long, like, networking seminar, that type of thing. But then when I got the internship, I was in digital media. So I was updating the website. I was preparing for that. At that time, I was preparing for the London Summer Olympic Games, interviews, website, mobile app, things like that. And then I ended up going back. 2 years later, I worked the Sochi Olympics. I was the U.S. contact when they were all in Russia. I was the U.S. contact for the website, the mobile app, updating content, things like that.
Nope. So is that kind of what like catapulted you? Because I remember, again, man, life is just so funny how it works. You and I would kind of like run into each other, over the years at different events and things like that, and you would be behind the camera. Is that kind of how that started? Is that job with the Olympic Committee? Is that kind of like what catapulted you, doing things behind the camera?
Yep, that's what started it, because the clothing line lasted, I don't know how many years you would call it, but it lasted basically from my 8th grade year all the way up to college. Once college came, I couldn't maintain the clothing line like I wanted to. I was just too busy being a student athlete. So the clothing line stopped. But that was basically my way of, okay, with these internships, what am I going to do to propel myself to the next? I'm not about to work in my head. This is just my thoughts. I'm not about to work for somebody. So how can I use this experience to create something for myself? So things I was learning, I was sitting in meetings with executives, and I'm just like giving my input as an intern at this large, prestigious organization, and they're taking my ideas. They're like, oh, that's great. So I'm like, wait a second, man. Like, if they're using my ideas, I'm an intern, and this is the United States Olympic Committee, and they're taking my ideas. I know I'm valuable enough, again, going back to believing in yourself, I'm valuable enough to do this on my own. So when I decided I was going to start my company, I was like, I'm going to start a digital media company, which was what I was doing. And yeah, like you said, that's sort of what propelled me getting the camera. And I had a couple guys that believed in me, that helped me out with just, investing in equipment. And I knew I was creative. I always had been. I used to vlog every day in college, just, random stuff, but just my whole day I video. And I just took it to a corporate level. And I'm like, you know what? I'm about to create for different people, and that's how that all started with the digital media company.
That's so powerful and so valuable what you just said. The emphasizing the importance of believing in yourself. I think sometimes, man, sometimes we get a little bit terrified and petrified by these big brands and these names and these companies and these corporations, and we allow those things to just overshadow us. But if you really just break it down to an individual perspective, it's just people in those meetings. Those people are no better, no less than you. And a lot of times, sometimes those people are not even smarter than you. They're not even more ambitious than you. They're not more creative than you. A lot of times those people have been put in those positions through resources, through relationships, whatever the case may be.
Exactly.
But that's a huge portion of why I wanted to start this platform and just highlight entrepreneurs specifically, because there is so much freedom and so much power in recognizing the value within yourself and doing things on your own.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And what the podcast space has allowed me to do is have these type of conversations. Like I always wanted to be in like broadcasting. Like I remember trying to go into like broadcasting school, too expensive. Like I'm like, well, that just shatters my dream. And then like when podcasting kind of came around, I'm like, you know what? These people who I watch on these podcast shows, these people who I watch in these broadcasts in the media, those people they're not smarter than I am. They don't have the same experiences I am. I'm gonna just take matters into my own hand and do so. So it's just it's so powerful and refreshing to hear you, paint the picture of, listen, I noticed my value when I was in these meeting rooms. This is the United States. This is the Olympic Committee. This is worldwide. I see the value within myself in these rooms. So I'm going to step out there and do stuff my own. That's so powerful. I know people are going to get value from this. Talk to me a little bit about because at some point in this time, man, you ultimately become a husband, man. You know what I'm saying? You ultimately get married in this time. What was that like? What was it like for you being a young man and saying, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and get married during this. My career is kind of taking off a little bit, but you know what? I'm going to get married during this time too. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. And before I touch on that, going back to what you just said, just piggyback off of even you saying with the podcast, how you started it, I just feel like anybody that's watching this, I just want them to take away, like, there's no prerequisite to become who you want to become. I think a lot of people get so caught up in that. And, you know, just like you, do you have the background for being, you know, for doing what you're doing? Not necessarily. Do I have the background for doing what I'm doing? No, but there's no prerequisite. There's nobody that can tell you you can't do that, because other than medical field, if you're trying to be a nurse or a doctor or, you know, a lawyer, and you need the schooling for it, there's no prerequisite to success. There's no prerequisite to telling you can't do this that way or another. So, you know, anybody that's watching, seriously, like, take that to heart and be what you want to be. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't, because it's not about credentials. It's not about prereqs. It's just about doing it and the action behind it, as both of us have done. You know, I think that's just a strong message that even for somebody who has an undergrad and a graduate degree, man, like, I did that because I was a part of my plan along the way.
That's right.
It has nothing to do with who I am now and what I'm doing now.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So,
right. And a lot of times, man, also when we go to school for, it doesn't even always play into what we end up doing anyway. You know what I'm saying? So
exactly.
You're 100% right, man.
Exactly.
You know, you're 100% right.
Yeah, man. I mean, but becoming a husband, man, like, so at the time, I knew I was going to start a business, like finishing up grad school. I knew I was going to start a business, but at the time I was considering moving to Chicago. I was really strongly thinking I was going to move to Chicago. I was up in Michigan, had been to Colorado. So I'm like, when I get done, I'm going to move to Chicago or Atlanta. I wasn't going to come back home, but I came back home, and literally probably within like a month or a month and a half of me being home, like moving everything from Michigan and moving home, I moved to outskirt of Cleveland, and that's where I met my wife, and we've been together ever since. You know, so it was pretty easy for me to know, like, and you know, when you know, it was easy for me. Like, when we met, like, I could already see and like envision a life with her. So a year and a half after we had been together, we got engaged, and then from there, we got married, and yeah, the rest is history. Now, you know, have a family and everything. And it was like what you were saying, talk about that. Like, it was easy though for me. I mean, I think even, you know, for you to relate to, it's just like, you come to a point in your life, like, okay, how long are you going to be single? How long are you going to do this? Like, life is all about progression. Life is all about, you know, building, and you can't do everything on your own. So I knew that was the next step for me. I had started my business, and I was starting to get some clients under my belt, and it was just like, you know what, this is next, you know.
What's been the most enjoyable part about marriage for you, and what's been the hardest part about marriage for you, you think?
That's a good question. I'll start with the hardest part, which for me, I really embraced like difficulty. That might sound weird, but like, I really like difficulty. So I would say the hardest part is just like, marriages, it can be challenging, like in terms of decisions that you both have to make, different things that you have to agree on or disagree on, that communication piece. I would say like, that's probably one of the challenging things, but like at the same time, I like that because I thrive in, look, let's get this right. Let's figure out how we're going to make this work, or, hey, here's an obstacle. Let's figure out how to overcome this obstacle. It's not fun. There's nothing fun about it, but for whatever reason, I thrive off of figuring out how to turn a negative into a positive. So even though that's like one of the challenges with marriage, at the same time, it's rewarding because once you get over that hump, it makes you that much stronger. You know, those obstacles are there, but they make you that much stronger. The most enjoyable thing is honestly just living my life with somebody. I mean, you know, my wife and I, she's my best friend. Just having somebody to live and experience everything with, like, is generic and overall as that sounds, like, that's the best thing. You know what I mean? Just not doing this alone. Like, everything that I do goes through her, and everything she does goes through me. Like, we're a unit, and that's the best part about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I think for me, the hardest part has been it's really just learning how to put somebody else before yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like that overall just mindset has been, it's just been difficult to evolve into every day. It's easy to do that a couple days a week, you know what I'm saying? Even for a couple weeks. But learning how to do that every day
No, yeah,
is
you're right.
is a task. And I think for me the most enjoyable has been, man, just like the amount of growth that I can see myself walk into because of it. I know I owe a lot to my wife in that aspect. And for her, she's never really forced me to do anything or like, what I'm saying, really been on my back. That's not really her. But she does give me a lot of wisdom and a lot of guidance in her own way. And it's allowed me to just evolve and grow. So I share that sentiment, man. It's just good to hear, somebody else speaking from that point of view as well. I'm supportive of healthy relationships and healthy marriages, too. So, so that's a beautiful thing. I want to fast forward just a little bit, into your book, man. Again, one of the things I named you earlier on the podcast when we started, man. You're a serial entrepreneur. You got a lot of different things up under your hat, man. And this book, became a new part of your entrepreneurial journey too. It's a children's book. I read the book. I loved it. Tried to get you hooked up with some people in school. We ultimately were going to do that, but the whole quarantine, the pandemic kind of threw a wrench into that. But it's a beautiful thing. Can you just talk to me a little bit about what the book is about, what inspired you to write the book, and just kind of give people a little bit of insight on what the book, what's your point in putting out the book?
Yeah,
what do you hope the book to do?
Absolutely. Like you said, I just wanted another avenue of getting my story out there and trying to motivate people. So, the book, it's always been something I've wanted to do. Never really had a plan though, like, okay, I'm going to do it right now. I never even had it written out. And actually the book that I had in mind wasn't this. That was a book with daily statements from years ago, which will, I'm sure at some point come. But this book, it only takes one. It actually all came to me in one day. Like, that sounds crazy. Obviously, it's a children's book. So it's not like I wrote this, 400-page novel, but it came
right. It ain't no dissertation.
Yeah, exactly. But it's my life story. It's about me, the obstacles and adversity that I've faced and how I've overcome them. So it was easy, obviously, because it was what I've lived. But I wanted to do a children's book because I just feel like that generation can use guidance, one, coming from a young Black boy, but two, I guess in my head, when I think of an author, I think of somebody that's just so polished and somebody that's just so studious. And, I'm the opposite of that. I'm not. Right. I mean, again, I've gone through the schooling, I have the degrees, but I'm the opposite of polished and studious. But
you're a regular dude.
Yeah, I'm a regular dude, man. And I just want that to hit together. Like, look, I have the education, I have the degrees, I have experience, but I'm also a regular dude. And this is what happens when those two things collide. And I just wanted to motivate people with my own story because I was doing a lot of motivational speaking and I'm hearing the feedback that I'm getting. So I'm like, okay, this is a good outlet for me to create a different avenue. And here we have it, have a book now. And that's been doing awesome,
And how did the motivational speaking thing even come about? How did you even like walk into that? Like, what gave you the idea to even say, you know what, I'm gonna go into this avenue to like share my story, but in a motivational way to kind of speak in these public spaces to be able to do so?
Yeah, so the motivational speaking actually started back when I was 16.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like I had the clothing line for a few years, and I remember getting a couple inquiries from people like, hey, there's this young entrepreneur who has who plays basketball. We want you to come talk. So, I mean, I was literally a freshman and sophomore in high school talking to middle school kids. So this is something that I've done. Again, another thing people don't know, I've done this though for years. And then it just sort of went away as I got busier, as I left. But I mean, I've always done some form of motivational speaking since I was, 15, 16. And then I spoke at a maximum security prison in college. So, I mean, I've done motivational speaking, but then after, recently, I've been really pushing. I've been, a bunch of different states doing motivational speaking at school. So it's something I've always done, but lately I've really been, busy with it. So that's pretty much how, and that just sort of stemmed from, how did you start a clothing line and manage, to keep playing basketball, this and that. That's where the message was initially. Then the motivational side really came with that prison. I got a standing ovation, and that was just like maximum security prison. You get a standing ovation for speaking to these guys. Like that really like put that fire in me with motivational speaking. Like, okay, if I can talk to this demographic and they really are feeling where I'm coming from, I could talk to anybody. And that's really where the confidence came.
How much of the motivational speaking like really helps you in your other businesses, like as far as just maybe just even from like a mindset standpoint?
Yeah, I was gonna say it helps me with everything, just because, again, going back to when I created the Daily Statement, I do this stuff to pick myself up. Like, I'm normal, I'm human. Like, I have my days where they're extremely tough. I have a lot of, doubt. I'm normal, I'm human. So I try to pick myself up as much as I can. So the motivational speaking, I hear myself telling like, practice what you preach. Like, or, if you told this person to do that, you need to do the same thing, so it helps me with every aspect of my life, my marriage, my kids, everything, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
It helps everything, every aspect.
Yeah. I definitely get that. 100%. Listen, I want to, shift gears just a little bit. Recently, I know, you lost your mother. Condolences to your mother. I knew your mother a little bit, man. She was a sweet lady. I remember when she passed, man. My mother called me, and she was heartbroken. Because like when your mother would, back in the day, when your mother would have like those trips, and I can't remember the name of the trip, but my mother went on these trips with your mother, and my mother just had a lot of like positive, just upbeat things to say about your mother, man. And you don't have to go into too much detail that you're not comfortable with, but just talk to me a little bit about just like the impact of having her and ultimately her transitioning, and how that how that affected you, and how that's ultimately been able to impact you positively as well.
Yeah, honestly, like this is a special moment to do this with you, because the last time I saw you, she was in the car, and we were at Mustard Seed, you know what I mean? So it's like, to be talking to you out of anybody is like really special, because I remember telling you, like, man, like my mom has breast cancer, and she didn't want anybody to know. And like, that was probably a month before she passed away. And that was the last time I saw you. So it's been rough. My mom was everything to me, obviously, but like, you think about a mom, like, oh, of course this is mother. Like, no, like we had a different relationship. Like I said, like we were alone going through this together. Like I was there helping her. I saw her struggle. I saw her sacrifice, just so much more outside of just her being my mom. Like, all the basketball trips and visits and things like that. Like that was all her. So when she initially told my brother and I, my wife, that she had breast cancer, she told my brother first, and she was waiting to tell me because she knew how I would react. And I remember she told me, and just even that moment, you're instantly heartbroken just from hearing the news. You go through so many phases, but I don't know, man. Like, you just knew whenever her time is, you just gotta, from now until then, you just gotta live life to the fullest and enjoy her as much as you can. So that's what I tried to do. Now, moving back, to when she passed away, it was like, it's unexplainable. You can't explain it. But at the same time, knowing my mom, like, I didn't think I was going to be able to really function. I didn't know how I was going to handle this. I had no clue. But my brother and I, we both got up, spoke at her funeral, which there's just this sense of power that comes over you from her, that you just feel you have to do it for her. And honestly, since her passing, like, I would say things for me have sort of propelled, which the skits sort of started from that. And how I'm doing it, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, every day is definitely a day that you think about her, but I just know, like, same with the book, like, there's so many things she didn't even get to see, but I know, like, if she did, like, just how proud she would be, man. So that just keeps me, keeps pushing me to keep going. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things, man.
Yeah. Well, listen, man. Number one, man. I appreciate you sharing that. You know, I do.
Yeah.
And I can hear it. I can feel it. You know, it's still
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
and one thing about life, and transition and death is that it's a process. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so take your time with that. I firmly remember that conversation we had at Mustard Seed, man. And you know, at the time, you know, my mother had been diagnosed as well, you know, with her ailments, and you and I, we just spoke for a while. But we hadn't seen each other, you know, in a minute, and I knew, you know, the importance of what you were saying. And for me, man, I think with my mother becoming ill, for me, it's affected me differently because my mother and I, we haven't always seen eye to eye. You know, and at some point in time, we haven't even always had the best relationship. And with this, it's kind to, and even just, you know, just kind of going through my own just personal growth and development. I attribute a lot of it to therapy, and just getting a lot of it out, and just, you know, learning how to learning to empathize with her as an individual. Man, I've been able to forgive and just like love my mother and allow her to be who she is. But one thing I always just tell people, you know, young people who have, you know, issues with their parents, you know, listen, you're only gonna get you one mama. You know what I'm saying? And you know, when she's not here anymore, you're gonna feel that, man. You know, so I definitely appreciate you touching on that, because I know how much, you know, she meant to you. You know, you and your brother, and just meant to the community as well, man. Like I said, she was a sweet lady, man. So my prayers go out to you and your family. You know, happy Mother's Day to her and your wife and everybody during that time, man. So I definitely appreciate it. Tell me one thing, man, that you think that you learned from her that you are constantly using with you today, that you want to continue to instill in your own children.
Man, that, you know what I mean? A million things. I mean, everything, honestly, this entire podcast, like everything I've preached has been because of her. Everything that I've said this entire time has been from her. That was all instilled in me. But I mean, number one, man, like she was a very religious woman. So the number one thing is just, you know, keeping God first, no matter what you do, knowing that that's where everything comes from, never being afraid to give him the glory for what, you know, he's done for you. So keeping God first is the number one thing. That's, you know, by far number one thing that, you know, I'm going to make sure my children are well aware of, like, you know, that's number one. But then from there, man, like, you know, she always encouraged me to travel. She always encouraged me to, you know, she was my biggest fan. She always encouraged me to do everything that I've done, traveling, basketball, everything you could think of. Like, she was the one that was pushing me to do those things. There's just so as far as advice, man, I couldn't even like, it's just the person I am today is all because of her. Like, so it's just like whoever I am and whatever you get off of me from this is because of her. So I can't even necessarily think of one particular piece of advice or information. Like, just whoever I am, whoever is all her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, having to keeping God first, man, is more than enough. You know what I'm saying? So that's more than enough. So I appreciate that, man. Again, I appreciate you for sharing that with me. Again, let's fast forward a little bit into what's going on today. TikTok. Listen, man, how did you even get started with TikTok? Again, if anybody has been following this dude on social media, this dude's TikTok is insane. Like, sometimes, like, I look at him like, man, where the hell he get that from? Like, the one where God be giving out talent, and you was sitting there and you dumped the high school ball, the rec ball, and you overflowed the AAU. Hey, I lost it. I'm like, this is hilarious, man. How did the TikTok thing even come about? You know what I'm saying? Like, where did that come from? You know, I see you really are enjoying it. You taking it like, you accepting people's challenges. Like,
I'm serious about it.
It's allowing your following to grow up. Like, just talk to me a little bit about just the experience with TikTok, man.
Yeah, so TikTok all started. I mean, I wouldn't say even started here. My nieces, my brother's two daughters, they had TikTok a year ago, and I knew about it, but I didn't know what it was. Just knew that they were always on TikTok. one day I'm asking them, they're like, "Oh, we're not telling you, Uncle Mylan, we don't need you on there." Like, so they didn't even want me on TikTok.
They was hating on you at first.
Yeah, they was hating on me hard. So I just left it alone for a while. Well, I went to a school in Chicago in December. I spoke at a school, and I always leave Q&A, and the kids were asking like, "Oh, are you on TikTok, this, that, and the other?" I'm like, "I'm not on TikTok. My nieces won't let me, Well, they're like, "Oh," like they're really upset. Like, you should be on TikTok. So I came home. I remember driving home from Chicago. I was really thinking about this, like it seems like TikTok's a big deal. Didn't even know, like, hadn't done really much research on it. Like, didn't know how big it was, not knowing it was the #1 downloaded app So I get home like, babe, I think I need to like create a TikTok account. Like, we're really trying to push that motivational speaking, but we weren't even thinking about what I'm doing now. Just like, I don't know. It seems like another avenue to reach this younger demographic. We created it, and 2 months later, man, I mean, it really, really took off. And yeah, I mean, now I'm at like 55,000 followers and over 15 million views and numerous viral.
Where did the ideas come from of what you're gonna do? I mean, a lot of it is sports related. You know what I'm saying? You do a lot of stuff with basketball. But like, again, man, like I just seen the one you posted today when your cousin Jerry come through. Like, where you getting the ideas from, man? Like, where you getting this stuff from? Is it just you during those brainstorming sessions? Is your wife helping you, or are you taking it from other places? Where you getting these ideas from?
Those two things, literally my crazy head, brainstorming, and my wife. I don't ever look at other people's stuff and try to take anything. Like, I always want it to originate from me. Yeah, man, I'm just trying to come up with relatable content. So whether it's things that I've experienced at some point in my life, turn it into a skit, or, the way that you wear some sandals or whatever it might be. And I don't even wear slides. Let me rewind. I call them flip-flops. Like,
facts.
Yeah, like I never even knew slides was a thing, but after creating TikTok, I see these kids are calling them slides. So it's like, okay, you got to go with what these kids are doing. I created a slides skit. It got like 500,000 plays. Like, it's just crazy, but these kids are loving it. And I mean, the ideas just come from, again, my personal experience growing up, or just different things that I think would go well. So like the cousin Jerry thing, I just debuted him today, and like I have a big plan with that. Like, I'm actually going to make that an ongoing thing. Like, that's a character I'm creating.
No.
Yeah, like I'm gonna have a whole.
So is the goal to just like use TikTok as a way to just begin like just continue to get more views into what you're already doing and like push your motivational speaking thing, or is it to like really make the TikTok thing its own entity? Like, what's the long-term play here with TikTok?
So the original goal was just what you said. All I want to do, I mean, my goal is just to motivate people, man. Like, literally, I just want to motivate people. That's why my handle is Motivated by Mylan. That's why, like, I just want to motivate. So that's the goal. Whether it's motivating in a funny way, a humor way, whether it's motivating in an inspirational way, whatever it might be, I just want to motivate. So that's the goal. But from there, yeah, I mean, now it seems like, people are liking it so much, man. Like, I mean, it's like, and like you said, I'm having fun with it. Like, it's keeping me sharp and creative. Like, I'm literally pushing my brain to the max, trying to think of different things. And I love that. Like, it's challenging me, again, embracing challenge. So whether that, I've had people say like, oh, you should start acting, you should try to get in commercials, or you should try to do this, that, or the other. I'm not going to try to do anything. Whatever happens, happens. But for now, it seems like people are enjoying the skits, and that's what I'm just going to keep doing. I don't know where.
That's dope, man. That's dope. I'm telling, like, literally every day it's a new video. And I like would look forward to seeing like, all right, Mylan got to post his TikTok today. Like, I always watch them. I never scroll through. I always watch them every trip. Let me ask you this: is TikTok, is it a social media app where you actually able to monetize off of it, or again, is it just about utilizing the platform to get more eyeballs on what you have doing to be able to monetize off of those things?
Yeah, so TikTok, they're working on that. It's still such a new app where the majority of TikTok is not content creators. It's just people that get on TikTok to watch other people's videos. So there's only a small percentage of people that are true creators that are uploading content all the time. Once you reach certain milestones, they give you an option, to go live. And on live, people can send you coins, which essentially can be cashed out. I've only gone live a handful of times, but that's the only way to really monetize right now. But the one thing that I've done is a lot of product placement lately. If you notice, like, I'll tag a brand because people reach out to me now and say, like, hey, we would love to have this featured in your video. So whether it's sunglasses or the ring I got on right now, I mean, all these come from brands that just want to get it pushed in the forefront. So essentially, that's another way to monetize, but that's something that you have to initiate or they have to initiate. It's not TikTok per se. So it's led to a lot of different things, man. I can't lie. The videos have been viewed by a lot of different people. I have kids from all over the country, all over the world, reaching out. It's been very interesting. No other platform can create that. And even my Instagram now has, my story. It's gone on a whole nother level that I didn't even know. It's just it's been interesting to watch,
Yeah, that's dope, man. Again, man, if y'all haven't seen this dude on TikTok, follow him on Instagram, follow him on TikTok, man. It's hilarious content, man. It's always something creative, man. I'm happy to see you, kind of taking over that lane, so to speak, man. That's good. Listen, man, let's tell me about, if you had to put it in 3 to 5 values or principles, what are 3 to 5 values and principles that you think every entrepreneur should try to have?
Consistency. You know what? I'm going to start. Consistency is going to be the last one. So determination. You have to be determined no matter what obstacle you're facing. You have to be determined to get through that obstacle. So definitely determination. Creativity, you have to always be willing to think ahead of your competition. If you're an entrepreneur, you have competition. There's no doubt about it. So you have to stay creative and fresh. And then I think you have to be flexible. So we have determination, creativity, flexibility, because being an entrepreneur is not easy. You have a lot of different curves and different things thrown at you, so you have to be flexible to adjust and adapt to different things and adopt new concepts, etc. So flexibility, and then persistent as well. You have to continue to be persistent, because at the end of the day, you can push something out there, but maybe people push it off. You have to stay persistent and make sure you're still in the forefront. And then that's where I say consistency last, because after you've done those things, maybe you've reached your goal, but you have to continue doing it again. Reaching it isn't enough. You have to continue doing it. So determination, I forgot all of them already, but
consistency, persistence,
flexibility. So that's just what comes to mind. But I think that those are very solid points to focus on.
Dope. Mylan, man, thank you so much, man. This has been wonderful, man. It's been terrific, man. I can't thank you enough for coming on. Before we get out of here, man, I have a couple like rapid questions that I hit people with before we get out of here. So I'm gonna hit you with those real quick. Cool. All right. So the first one is, man, I'm not a fan of New Year's resolutions at all.
Me either.
But I am a big person on manifestation and putting good things out there in the universe, being intentional. So what are your intentions for 2020?
That's a great question. Now 2020 obviously has been one of the most challenging years for everybody.
Right.
But my intention for 2020, I told my wife when this pandemic first hit, like, I'm not going to let this break me. I'm going to let this pandemic make me. So my intention for 2020 is for the world to know my name.
Yeah, dope. You on the track for doing that, man. So keep it up. What does purpose mean to you, and how does that connect to what it is that you're doing today?
Man, that's so powerful. That's why I love just the title of this podcast. Purpose is, so there's a couple of different ways I feel like you could take it. You could take it from a spiritual way, or you could just take it from a personal way. Purpose from a spiritual way is, living out the plan that God has for you, keeping it believed. From a personal standpoint, purpose is learning, establishing, developing, discovering who you are and doing it. Um, what it's done for me, I mean, purpose has been everything because I feel like, again, passion and purpose go together. And I think everybody is placed here for a reason and for something specific. So it's figuring out whatever that is and doing it. What I'm curious to know, because you created this podcast based off of that. What is your definition, just real impromptu, what's your definition of purpose?
Yeah. So for me, man, me personally, it's all tailored around serving people and providing service. Like for me, the goal of this podcast is, again, it's try to highlight people, man. It's try to get different definitions of what purpose looks like. But mine is always rooted in providing service. I do that in my day-to-day work, as a social worker, even with investing in real estate. Like, sure, I'm in it to provide myself with long-term wealth, but like I truly get something out of providing a space for somebody to have a safe, clean, healthy home to be in. I really get something out of that. So for me, my purpose and me living my purpose is all about providing service. And that's just how I look at it for me. If I'm not providing service, then I'm not really truly living, what God has put in my, put in my spirit to be able to do so. My biggest blessing for me has been the people that God has allowed to be in my life. So for me, I have to give that back. I have to provide service and provide assistance to individuals. I have to. If not, God is going to do something to remind me real quick. Hey, get on what you're doing. To help some people. So that's my definition of that. So tell me something about you that people would be surprised to know.
I mean, honestly, if you've never seen me in person, everybody's always shocked with my height. I mean, that's the most basic thing.
No.
Like,
No. It sounds basic, but I understand completely.
You know what I mean?
I get it.
Like,
I get it.
Everybody always blown away. Like, oh, how tall are you? You'll get that every single day. 6'9".
Yeah, 100%.
So other than that, I mean, the thing is, like, I really try to put myself out there where I'm an open book and I'm as transparent as possible. So, like, between my website, my bio, whatever, like, I feel like everybody knows me. Like, if you've discovered me, I feel like I'm an open book. Like, pretty much everything. I don't know, man. Like, I mean, other than the height, unless if you've seen me, that's probably like it's such a basic thing, but I just feel like
that's all good. Okay, that's all good. What scares you?
God. Definitely, God-fearing. Other than that, probably like deep water. Granted, I will go on a cruise, I'll go on a boat, but I'll go on a jet ski, but I am not a swimmer.
Okay.
Are you swim, right?
I do. I love the water. Yeah, so water is not really my issue. I'm trying to think. What really scares me. I think just the idea of not living up to my potential is what scares me. You know what I'm saying? But no, it's not. You know what I'm saying? So that's that. I think that would be my thing. What's your favorite quote?
Favorite quote? I have a couple of them. People may doubt what you say, but they will always believe what you do. That's been my favorite for probably around 13, around that time. So that's been like my lifelong like staple. People may doubt what you say, but they'll always believe what you do.
Dope. What's the best advice you ever received?
Best advice I ever received was, it's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you.
I like that.
Yeah, that stuck with me.
That's powerful.
Yeah, it's very powerful, especially when you dissect it and really think about each level. Because you grow up, at least I grew up, always hearing it's not what you know, it's who you know. That's all I hear. But it's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. Because you can know the whole world, but if you don't make yourself known, it doesn't matter. Like, so you really have to make yourself known so people know who you are. I think amazing.
I like that. If you could pick up the phone and call your 20-year-old self, knowing what you know today, what would you tell yourself?
Man, that's good. Man, what would I tell my 20-year-old self? Man, that's a good question. I think I would just tell my 20-year-old self to, because the determination and the hard work was there. I think I would just tell myself to stay patient, to be patient, because everything in life has its own timing, and it's not about when you want it to happen. Like you said, you put things out there in the universe, they're going to come to you when they're supposed to happen at the right time. So I think I would just tell myself, my 20-year-old self, I would have been probably a little bit immature, but I just would have told myself to be patient and, continue what you're doing. Just don't rush the process, just trust the process, be patient.
Dope, man. Thank you so much again, man. Mylan, tell us what you got coming up, man. Give us everybody your social media tag, your website. Give everybody your information so they can know how to contact you, know how to find you.
Definitely. I appreciate it. My website is just my name, MylanMurphy.com. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of that is just motivated by Mylan. As far as what I have coming up next, I don't know. Every day is a mystery. That's why I thrive to get up every day to be creative, because you just never know where one thing will lead to the next. But the one thing that you can count on is me doing these skits. Right now with the pandemic going on, definitely going to try to provide entertainment and comedy to my audience. So definitely right now, short term, you can count on these skits and hopefully be entertained by them.
100%, man. Thank you again, man. I appreciate you. I have one more thing that we do. I have my guests do one last thing. Listen, I am a podcast fanatic, a podcast junkie. I have a lot of inspirations in this space, and one of my inspirations in this space was Arian Foster. Used to play for the Texans, play for the Dolphins. He retired early. He's doing a lot of things creatively now, doing music, just doing a lot of a lot of cool things, like really walking in his purpose, man, walking in the things that, he truly believes to be who he is. And I think that that's super dope. On his podcast, he will have his guests lobby for Jim Carrey to be on his podcast. Jim Carrey was like one of his most interesting people to be on the show. And I don't know if Arian's really doing his podcast anymore. I haven't seen any uploads in a while. But I just appreciated him, having people lobby for Jim Carrey. So my way of showing homage to him is I have my guests lobby for Arian Foster. We're gonna keep putting it out there. It's gonna come back when it's supposed to, as you just said.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So if you man, look in your camera right now and tell Arian Foster why he should be on the Live Your Purpose podcast.
Yo, Arian, I'm a big fan of when you find out or discover somebody, paying homage to that person. John is, beyond a good dude. Obviously, what he's doing is because of you. And, for him to be able to have that circle back around and get you on the podcast, man, I think both of you could do something big. Honestly, it's not even just, what you started, but what he's currently doing and what you're doing. The two of you together, man, joining forces could be something scary. So, trust me when I say this is, one of the best people I know. And, simply the title of this podcast, Living Your Purpose, that's what you're trying to preach to people. That's enough right there. That should already make it, a done deal.
My God. Thank you so much for that. Mylan, man, salute, man. I really appreciate you coming on. Listen, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Again, practice social distance, stay safe, stay home. I don't give a damn if they are opening up the world. Stay home. Stay patient. We didn't went this long. We can go a little bit longer, man. So condolences to everybody who's lost anybody to COVID-19. My prayers and my condolences are with you and your family. Another episode of the Live Your Purpose podcast. We are out.